Hey guys and girls, it's Blackjack with 396 Guitars, doing another parts build. This one is a PJ Squire that I found passing by a thrift store, and it was hanging on the wall, and I went in and chatted the guy up, picked it up for 40 bucks. Let's get to work. So I've done a lot of work off camera. When I got it, the neck was actually attached to it. It's a Squire neck. The body, I have no reason to believe that they weren't mated together, and born together. It had a nondescript pickup in here, some dangling wires, a couple of pots, no pickups here. It did not have a bridge on it, had no other hardware other than the neck being bolted to it, like so. Yeah, it is what it is. So I figured, okay, I'll throw together a parts build and a cheap guitar for some young person or some entry-level player that needs a P-bass. Now, I've been wanting a P-bass for myself, not a PJ, and I don't know why Fender would do this. This is a Squire with an Affinity tag up here, and I sublet my services out, subcontract out my services to a box guitar store, and I see all kinds of configurations. In my opinion, this is a P-bass body. It's going to have a P-bass type of, in fact it did when it was born, a P-bass pickguard. This pickup is exposed. This one has the pickguard over it. It should have a P-bass neck. It's a jazz bass neck. It's very narrow. I measured it 1.5 instead of 1 5/8. Blah blah blah. I digress. It's like a hodgepodge of something. I guess Fender's own version of a parts build. Took a bunch of spare parts. I was going to try to reuse the neck because it's not horrible, but it doesn't look horrible until I leveled it and I checked fret level and tried to get it as straight as I could while I was doing everything else so that this thing is in a straight condition. And guess what? We are twisted right down here. Yeah, so the neck is probably not usable. I could put it together and make it play, but it wouldn't be right. It's literally, it's twisted. A banana, a back bow, you can deal with that stuff with truss rod adjustments and shims and all kinds of other things. But when a neck is twisted, yeah, you're not going very far with that. It's too bad because the neck looks okay, but looks can be deceiving. So what we're going to do is go to my parts bin, and yeah, this is a bird's eye maple neck, and some of you may remember this. I was going to attempt to put this on a jazz bass that I was building for a customer, but it wouldn't fit in the neck pocket. And it's a Warmoth, so you may or may not be familiar with Warmoth product, but they're licensed by Fender. Excellent gear, high quality build, rosewood, bird's eye maple, clear coated except for the board. That's what I really don't like clear coat on the board, and I like that part. It's got inlays, it's extra fret, it's a long scale, but the board is long scale, but not the neck. So that's important when it comes time for intonation. So tried to fit it in there, didn't want to go. I had to do quite a bit of shaving here, and you know what it was? It's all the clear coat. I don't know if you can see how shiny that is, but they must have put 30 coats of clear coat on there, and of course they clear coated all over the heel, and it didn't want to go in. It took quite a bit of shaving to get it in there, and of course I did all this off camera. Gutted the body. The neck holes that are in here did not line up with the neck holes that are here. So what I did, and it's a pretty simple procedure, you before I over drilled and doweled these, we're going to show you how to saw those off. You clamp it together, and that way you can still move it a little bit. You mount a bridge on it, and then you run a couple of strings, not necessarily guitar strings or bass strings or whatever. I use yarn. It's kind of cooking string basically, and you check your spacing. You check your spacing, string spacing on the fretboard. And once you go, okay, yeah, that will mate up and it will be within measurement and be perfect. Then you go, okay, well, these holes are not lining up with the holes that are already in the neck because this is a Squier and this is to Fender specs. When I had this on a jazz bass that I built many years ago, it lined right up because they don't mess around. Wormith is top quality stuff, and this is a top quality neck. This neck is worth more, 3 times as much as this whole guitar was worth when it was brand new. But that's not what this build is about. This neck has been languishing. I'm going to use it only because the Squier neck is a piece of junk. There's nothing wrong with this body. It's got a little chafing, a little love taps on it here and there. Off camera, I have already buffed it, power buffed it with some clean, very light compound, cleaned everything off of it, got right down to where it's nice and smooth, and then took a polish and went after it. It's clean and ready to go. I have all my parts lined up with the exception of a few minor items. Today's exercise is going to be sawing off the dowels. Okay, we're gonna close cut those, which is a flush cut saw that we use. Some of you have seen me use that, and then we're gonna clamp it back together and get it to where we want it, to where we know it's perfect, and then we're gonna mark the back of the neck and re-drill new holes and set the neck. That's all that today's exercise is about. I have a really nice bridge to go on there. We may put that on there and run the strings to show that exercise, but we'll see how the video time goes. I'm trying to do this whole thing, this whole build in 2 videos. It may or may not happen. So stand by while I get rid of this and we get ready to saw that. So yeah, flush cut saw. You can see I've already done 3 of them here. All we're doing, what we do is we over drill the holes, glue a dowel in there with wood glue, and then we take after it's cured, I did that the other day, after it's cured you get after it with a flush cut saw, and a flush cut saw is this side up. The bottom is meant to be smooth. Now, the caveat is don't get on there and start grinding. Very lightly let the saw do the work. All right, and it will leave your surface without putting mars and scratches and what have you all over it. Let the weight of the saw do all the work, lightly. Now, when you get down to it, you're still going to have to take a little bit of a chisel and clean off some of this dowel. All right, but if you're doing this on the front of a guitar, even though it's a safe side up, safe side down, it's a flush cut saw, you want to tape as much as you can so that action isn't going to mar up, say, the front of your headstock or the front of your body. Even though it's a safe side, all right, it's smooth, but it can still leave every little bit of marring on there, and you don't want that. This is going to be in the neck pocket, so it'll never show, but I can tell you it didn't leave any scratches on there at all. If there's any little marring, it'll come right out, right? So then we use a small 1/4 inch, I think this is a 1/4 inch, wood chisel, and you don't get after it with a hammer. I think it's a 1/4 inch. used to say on there somewhere. I think it's 1/4 inch. Anyway, there might be a little bit where you still have to get after it, and it's sharp. Don't use a dull wood chisel. And you just kind of, little by little, take off whatever is left, because you don't want that lifting up your neck when you attach it to your body, and your finger will tell you when you got it off. Again, let the tool do the work. When you get it down nice and close, you know you're good. It will take that wood right off. Any little bit that's sticking up that the saw didn't get, right? Yeah, pretty basic stuff. Go slow and be careful. And again, if you're doing this on the top side of a guitar where there's finish that you got to worry about, I'm not putting any marks on here at all because this is so sharp. I'm only cutting just the dowel, right? But if you're on the top side of a guitar and you got finish to worry about, put tape all around it, and then you don't have to worry about maybe you're slipping and go like that. And there you go. You got a mess on your finish, and it happens. It's happened to me. Not going to lie. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't happen. Things happen. All we're doing is trying to get it down flush to where you don't feel it. You know, like when you have a fingernail hanging, yeah, you'll know. You can feel it. It's smooth. You don't want anything protruding out because that'll act like a shim and it won't set in the neck pocket properly into the body. Nice and smooth. That one right there. And sometimes you'll have to turn the thing around and get at it from the other side. But I digress. I'm going to pause here while I finish this up, and then we're going to clamp the neck to the body and get ready to fit it. Drill through, make our marks through the body, and then put screws in. Stand by. So this is my exercise to check string spacing. You'll notice we put the bridge on. I test fitted it before. I know this will work. I've already actually done this exercise, but I'm doing it for your benefit now. I also, this time I put the ground wire that goes underneath the bridge, goes into the control cavity. Basic stuff, but you know, you can check other tutorials that I have about wiring and stuff, but that's the first step. You have to have a ground wire under the bridge. So, regular cooking string. I got a little fishing line, very small on the other side because it's easier to fish through the hole. Pull it through, and all we're doing is checking string spacing here. We're doing a mock-up. I want it to go over the saddle. I want it to go over the nut, and pull it as tight as you can. Right? There's no tuners on it yet, as you can see. So what we're going to do is just go through the hole, just to hold it in place. Come on, you get in there. We're just going to kind of put it there and put a clamp on it. That'll hold it right in place, right? And this is just to check string spacing, right? And we're going to do the E and the G. And why only those two? Well, if you get those two right, everything else will fall into place. Now, placing the pickups later on, that's a different story. You got to make sure you get those where they're supposed to be. Do not just assume that the holes that are already in here to hold the pickups were done right at the factory, because a lot of times they're not. And if I have to, I will fill those and start fresh. I want my pickups to be right where they're supposed to be. So if before you set your neck and start drilling holes and putting screw bolts in to hold your neck in place, do this procedure and you won't have a heartache at the end of the day when you put your whole guitar together and your string spacing's all boogered up. Now, again, there's no pickups in here, but what we're looking at is string spacing on the neck. And I test fitted this the other day and was happy with it based on what my P-bass looked like. And make sure that you sight down it so that you can look at it and go, oh, okay, yep, that's exactly how I want it to be. Make sure all your saddles are where they're supposed to be. And you can tell, even the camera's picking up on that. We've got good string spacing. So if these two are right, the rest of them will be right. Now, how do I know that? Well, yeah, you can measure until the cows come home, but your eyeball is the best. Yeah. And then you check it to a jazz bass or a P bass. And yeah, usually the E string is going to be a little farther in than the G string, but I like the way this looks. And to confirm, we're nice and tight in the pocket, right? We're nice and tight in the pocket. You can't get a feeler gauge in there. The neck isn't going to flex this way or that. I can live with that. This is going to be a nice playing instrument when I get done. We've got almost exactly the same amount here. The E string is slightly in more, but that's every bass I build, you can pull it off the rack and look at them. A lot of people never even take the time to look at this stuff, you know. They never notice string spacing, ever. If you want to go to where you can adjust your string spacing here, you can put a different bridge where you can plop this one over a little bit more or over that way a little bit more and get exactly where you want. But this is the bridge that I had, and that's the one I'm going to use. I like that. I'm gonna roll with it. I can tell that we've got pretty even spacing here where the J style pickup is going to be. It's even, and it looks even going across the P style pickups. Now later on, those are going to get placed, and they're going to get placed exactly where they need to be. But by doing this exercise, you know you're not way off. If you had one string that was way over here, yeah, you got a problem. That's where it wants to be. And this is only just to get you close. But now I know I can take these strings off, this twine, and I can mark my holes through the body into the back of the neck and proceed with setting it permanently. I hope all that makes sense. I hope it all makes sense. And if you've never seen that before, yeah, it's a thing. That's how I was taught to do it. And there's really no other way. I mean, you can use guitar strings for it, but why waste them? Use some cooking string. All right. All right, I'm going to pause while I get my drill ready, and then I'm going to show you how you mark, and then drill and set. So all we're doing is marking the back of the neck inside the pocket, and we're going to use the existing holes in the body because we've already put the neck in, we test fitted it, ran strings to make sure our string spacing was correct, and then this is the moment of truth. Now only 3 of the 4 holes are showing because the clamp is in the way, but I can do that one later. You're going to go in and you're going to actually make a mark in the back of the neck. Let the hole in the body guide you. Go slowly. And that's all it takes. All we did was mark the back of the neck, right? Nothing moved. We're not setting anything right now. All we're doing is marking. We're going to do those 3, and then after we put those screws in, I'm going to have to do the same thing on the fourth hole, which the clamp is holding in the way, right? So now we can take our clamp back off. Take our clamp off and take our neck out of the pocket. And there, and there. That's where our holes are. And we know those are correct because they follow the body contour and we already measured everything. We mocked it up. The fourth hole, yeah, sometimes the clamp is in the way. We're going to go right there. And if you look really closely, you can see where the dowel was, how off it was from the holes in the body. Don't just look at the neck and go, oh yeah, it's already got holes in it, just drill it in it. You're going to have a heartache. That is not going to work. Very rarely does that ever just go right together like that. You have to make sure that you got it where it's supposed to be. Alright, sorry about that. Putting my clamp away. So, we don't need the body right at this moment. What we are going to do is drill our holes, and we only want to go so far. In other words, you're going to look at the depth. We don't want to get into the board for certain. We're going to look at that depth, and we're going to mark our drill bit with a piece of tape. All right? So what you do is you go, okay, well, that's about as far as I can go. Maybe a little bit less, and then you put a piece of tape right on there so you don't go any farther than that. That way the screw will find wood and purchase, but you're not cutting into the fretboard. Two different pieces of wood, neck, fretboard. Stand by. So you see how you do this. There's no need to have, go through the body and measure the difference in the neck plate and all that. You can only go so far, and that's about it right there. And then you put a piece of blue tape on your drill, and that's as far as you want to go, period. So I'm going to drill these three. We're going to set this neck and go to town. Stop at the tape. So after drilling the other holes and pilots, we're going to get ready to put the neck plate and a couple of screws in, and then get that last screw hole that we missed. And it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to put these two on this side first. And kind of take them down. Now, after you do all of this, you still have to recheck your work and run those strings again, just to make sure nothing moved. I don't know what's coming out on the video, but yeah. So we got those two in. Now I can pretty much tell by where we're at here and here, the clearance is the same. We're going to mark that last hole and put a screw in, drill it and put a screw in. And we're going to do all that with the neck on it. So all we got to do is mark it, which is this guy right here. Right there. Make sure everything is right where you want it. It's tricky. You got to be an octopus sometimes. Stand by. So, sometimes it just takes an extra hand. And all we're going to do is mark enough to make a mark in there, and we're going to drill it. That will pull the other. You're going to use the right size drill bit. And then of course you have to pull this back off and put that other screw in. Stand by. So every once in a while you run into something, and yeah, putting that last screw in kind of fought me a little bit, but we got it the next set, and we ran our strings again, as you can see, just to make sure our spacing hasn't changed dramatically from actually drilling the holes and setting the neck. And I can tell you by eyeball, it's perfect. And I can tell that our pickups are going to be perfect when we get them in. Those are going to be adjustable. If string spacing to the individual player, whoever ends up with this guitar, maybe me, maybe somebody else, wants this one out or that one in or whatever, you can put a different kind of bridge on here where you can get lateral movement. But right now it measures exactly like all of my jazz basses, which is what this neck is. Same measurement in or out laterally. I'm totally happy so far for a $40 body and a neck that I had in stock. It's an expensive neck, don't get me wrong, but it's set in the body, and the next stage is going to be putting it all together. It's Blackjack with 396 guitars. We're doing another build here on the bench. Somebody might end up with this guitar. Could be you. We'll talk soon. Remember, if you dig what I'm doing, like and subscribe.